Well, thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to dig into the papers and beyond to let you know what is happening in them. But like we put out yesterday, I'd like to put out to you on this show so you can share your thoughts with us with the hashtag #AMShow. What can you do with 20 Ghana cedis? I'd love to know. What can you do with 20 Ghana cedis? Is it food? What is it? What can you do within a day with 20 Ghana cedis? It'll be interesting to hear from you. Don't you forget to share on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram with the hashtag #AMShow. But let's start digging into the Daily Graphic newspaper. Combating money laundering, political will critical, Finance Minister tells West African states. And we were in a bad place in some of the books of international agencies when it comes to money laundering. But in recent times, it appears we have made quite some good strides. And the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has called for increased political commitment from the governments of West African states to combat illicit financial flows. He said such commitment and political will would help eliminate the criminal activities such funds were used to support. And it's interesting because we're combating terrorism in the sub-region. And sometimes that is one of the funnels or areas where laundered money is funneled into. So as we stem the tide of money laundering, would also be helping ourselves in terms of the fight against terrorism. He expressed concern over the fact that being grey-listed, like I was mentioning, by the Financial Action Task Force risked becoming a stranglehold on the region by eroding confidence in the financial system and freezing bank assets worth over $500 billion. $500 billion. So that is the story there as the banner headline in the Daily Graphic. 16 million register for Ghana card, that's according to the NIA, and reports that the registration numbers have hit as high as 88% of the target groupings. So that story is on page 13 of the paper. And it talks about the fact that although foreign residents have also been registered and issued with their Ghana cards, the NIA is yet to confirm the details of their statistics. Mr. Abdul Ganiyu, who disclosed this in an interview with the Daily Graphic last Monday, also revealed that so far the NIA had issued cards to all the people who had been registered, but about 2 million of the cards were yet to be collected. This is of interest to me because I know people who registered back then, and I'm talking about when the drive started. They were told to go and return, and they've been following up. They even go to the HQ of the NIA around Gulf House, in the Shiashi area, and they are still not able to get their cards. They are tossed about. So what about that, Mr. Abdul Ganiyu, head of corporate affairs at the NIA? Interesting questions to answer there. GRA directs taxpayers to file returns online, which would make matters simpler. That story as well on page 13. Let's catch some snippets from the international front. And Amos Sawyer dies. Former interim president of Liberia, Dr. Amos Claudius Sawyer, has died at the age of 76. He was one of the country's most acclaimed politicians who became interim president in the 1990s as part of efforts to stop the bloody war launched by now jailed former president Charles Taylor. In other stories, you may have heard of this. Airports company gets new MD. That story on page 17 of the paper. And the board of the Ghana Airports Company Limited has appointed Ms. Pamela Jamson-Tete as the new managing director of the company. It didn't take too long after Yakup Kwakwa did it. Now, the appointment of Ms. Jamson-Tete, who assumes the position as the 6th MD of the company since its establishment in 2007, takes effect from today. She becomes the 3rd woman to lead the state-owned company that has exclusive responsibility for the development, maintenance, planning, and management of airports in the country. On the back page of the paper, Ho dual carriageway to be completed December. And that story right there, all of them in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's take a quick look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. And we're still waiting to hear from you on social media. How much can you do with 20 Ghana cedis in a day? Rush for Ghana card intensifies. That's on page 16. And it's logical, right? Of course, with the SIM card re-registration and the Ghana card required and all of that, and the Ghana card purported to be an e-passport. I use my words carefully and intentionally. Purported because as of now, we've been given a March sort of start date for the approach, right? It would be interesting. I was calling the other day for those from other countries who may have attempted using their Ghana card, like Augustine Blay of the Vice President's office had said that someone from the UK had purported to have used it and been allowed. So it would be interesting to find out how many are using the Ghana card as an e-passport. But that story on page 16, let's take a quick look at that. And if you have any Ghana card blues or stories, you can share with us as well on social media. So there is no end in sight as far as the long queues and frustration being experienced by Ghanaians at the various National Identification Authority centers to register or collect their national identification card is concerned. Now, the mad rush for the Ghana cards is to beat the March 31, 2022 deadline set for the subscriber identification module re-registration exercise being conducted across the country. Now, during a follow-up visit by the Ghanaian Times newspaper on Tuesday at Amamole in the Ghana North municipality to find out whether the situation had abated, it was observed that the queues had increased, with applicants having to stand in the scorching sun to wait for their turns. The usual canopies and chairs, as well as Veronica buckets with running water, liquid soap, and hand sanitizer were missing. And it beats my imagination. In this country, you have to queue for practically everything. In other jurisdictions, even the advanced ones, you queue for stuff, maybe food stamps and the rest. But why do we have to be like this? Even when we're trying to shore up our system with digitalization and all of that. Sometimes, and it's so inconvenient. Look at the SIM card re-registration, especially when the process started. You would see people in their 50s, 60s, 70s queuing in the hot, the baking sun. Why do we have to do this to ourselves all the time? Why can't we facilitate things? I mean, people have said, for example, that this whole SIM card re-registration, it's an app that was used. Phones were being used as the same phones that the attendants or staff from MTN, Airtel, Tigo, Vodafone, Glow, is the same ones they were using. How couldn't we facilitate this in such a way that it would have been a more simple process? Maybe I could even use my own phone, get the data out there, rather than go out and do this. I know very elderly folk. My own mother has Ghana card issues. Now, without her Ghana card, how is she going to register for her SIMs or re-register her SIM cards? So it's a very disturbing development, especially for senior citizens in our country. But that story that I was making mention of, NAPCO trainees, and they have demonstrated to demand payments of allowance arrears, and they embarked yesterday on a demonstration through the principal streets of Accra to demand the immediate payment of allowance arrears owed its members. They also called on government to, as a matter of urgency, formulate and implement a career pathway for NAPCO trainees. Now, you know that there was a system. They were supposed to, after a period of time, to have exhausted the NAPCO facility, which has come to bear. But now, where do they go? That is the big question. So was it just a stopgap measure, which then doesn't really give the sort of returns we would want as a country? Some of the placards bore the inscriptions, "Hunger kills more than COVID-19." And when are you paying our 10-month arrears, Mr. President? There was also job experience without livelihood is useless. And maybe finally, over 3 years working experience is enough for permanent employment. Those thoughts there shared on the NAPCO situation. Israeli ambassador in Ghana pays courtesy call on NTC management, the New Times Corporation, and collaborate to curb money laundering, terrorist financing. That's according to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. But going back to the NAPCO question, let me say good morning to Manuel Granting, who joins me here. Good morning, Manuel.
Good morning, Ben.
Right, you were out on the streets covering that specific endeavor yesterday. What more can you share with us briefly on what the feel was yesterday for those who may have missed the action?
So at the heart of the demonstration that we had yesterday was a yearning really for at least something to go by the day. But I spoke to a gentleman who said he had to borrow money to be able to make it for the demonstration yesterday.
He had to borrow. He wanted to demonstrate as a NAPCO beneficiary. He had to borrow money in order to make it there to demonstrate.
Exactly.
Wow.
And this is a 34-year-old man who tells me that he depends on his parents even up until yesterday that they had to demonstrate. And so, I mean, you got a sense of the chilling accounts from these NAPCO beneficiaries who at the time in October 2018 were being brought into the program. We're really excited about the prospects of the program. But now, and yesterday when I spoke to...
And not just them, we were all excited about it. Because after all, if it's whether a stopgap measure or not, if it's going to accommodate them, economically speaking, for a while, it makes sense. But we all know the sort of even problems that
and you see, a lot of money
they faced in terms of getting their monthly stipends.
A lot of money has been pumped into this NAPCO program. I'll just run you through. In 2018, when the program was started, it was a budgetary allocation of 300 million Ghana cedis. In the next year, that's 2019, that allocation rose by more than 180%.
I remember clearly there was a huge increment.
From 300 million Ghana cedis to 850 million Ghana cedis.
550 million Ghana cedis added on.
And that was in 2019. Now, in 2020, it dropped by some 10 million to 840 million in 2020. In 2021, it came down to 672 million Ghana cedis, giving you an indication of a declining, slope, if you like, of the budgetary allocations. Then in 2022, government has budgeted 520 million Ghana cedis for NAPCO. And they were told that they were going to get permanent employment. In fact, at the launch, the plan was to equip them with the needed skills, and to
prepare them for the job market. So that after this training phase and beneficiary phase, you are properly equipped to get into the job market.
And Ben, you remember that in November 2021, there was a directive, an omnibus directive really, for all of them to be sent home because the program had essentially been discharged. And after the 3 years, they were supposed to have gone home. And then there was a counter directive that, keep them at post and attempt to get them into your system and sort of integrate them.
How do you feel about that? I mean, honestly, knee-jerk reaction, fear of political backlash. What do you think was the cause? Because if the program has run its course, what do you do? And that is one of the problems I have with this country. We are always reactionary. We're always doing things. Oh, if the program has run its course, what do you do? It has run its course, but what was the plan? That is the question. When it was done, what was the plan? To maintain them, to push them into, because I even had the impression, I was under the impression at the start of the NAPCO thing, that we're equipping them, we're going to pay you for this period, and when we're done, you would have acquired the skills needed, requisite ones, so that you can even feed into other aspects of the economy with what you've got. But here we are, seeming to continue with a NAPCO when that wasn't the original plan.
Exactly, and you have a perfect answer in a statement made by the finance minister sometime in 2021 when he spoke at the University of Professional Studies, Accra. He said, the government payroll is full. And so we cannot really, make any extra employment, especially at this large scale. In excess of 68,000 trainees or beneficiaries who were still on the program as of November 2021. And so we had been told that there was no money to pay more people who would have been brought into the government payroll. And then in November, we're told these people are supposed to go home. Then another counter directive comes that, keep them and find something for them to do. I have to mention, though, that the NAPCO Secretariat, led by Dr. Ibrahim Anyas, is running a sort of a transition program. And we're told this was supposed to have taken a course of the 3 months extension that they were given, which really has now elapsed, or it's just about elapsing. And so now you're having, for instance, the Hugh Ghana module. Have a lot of them who have not been paid, not for 1, 2, 3, or even 6 months, 11 months, Ben.
While we are suffering from the COVID-19 scourge, and they could help because we don't have adequate numbers, not when it comes to doctors and not when it comes to nurses and other healthcare professionals.
11 months. And so what you have is that some of them are either giving up and then discontinuing the entire program because it will cost them so much more to go to work than to stay at home. And others are having to be at the benevolence of other people. For instance, a lady told me that her in charge, the DDNS in her particular hospital, is who she goes to, that antenna is my patron. When a woman is coming to him, but if you don't give me money, I can't come to work. And that's being the sort of picture that now, out of the, the grand and amazing projection that was made in 2018, this is where they have landed. And so they presented a petition to the Secretariat, hoping that their allowances, which have been in arrears for almost a year, will be paid, and then also they'll be provided permanent employment, as has been promised.
And this is the real test of policy. Like you can see on your screens as well. So the NAPCO program initiated to support 100,000 to acquire relevant workplace skills and experience. But how has it panned out over time? The details there. We've brought you some of the details about spending and all of that. It really got me thinking, though, the 34-year-old who had to borrow all this money, even to make it to the demonstration. How does someone like that, he can't even keep body and soul together. I mean, you have to do a bit of la la sulela or pa to make it out there. How does someone like that self-actualize? What are his dreams? What does he want to become eventually? I don't know which of the modules he was under, but what does he want to become? And even if he wanted to do something as basic as enter into a relationship or get married, I mean, these things come with cost. And we wonder why. It would be interesting to find out the statistic of the people who are, I mean, ripe for marriage, if you like, 30s and their 30s and the rest, who still can't get married past that hurdle because financially it's impossible for them to do so. And it's also a product of our social cultural system, because then we've created this situation where if you want to tie the knot, you must do X and you must do Y and you must do the traditional this and you must do the church that, and it is all cost. All of it cost.
But at the heart of this entire conversation is the living standard, really, across the country. And if you've been following the Joy Living Standard series, you would get a picture of how people do. And when we're back in Legon, the particular days that you do 101, the particular days you do 111, that means that the grounds were fertile. And then there are other days that you do 010, which means that, and 1 means you're getting a meal. 0 means you're not getting a meal. So
and if you were in university back then and you never did, we did it. And I'm proud to say I did it. There were days when, Charlie, you knew, say, today, it's 1 meal you can afford, and that's it.
Exactly. And really, the other side of it, the flip side, is that we were living this life in the university as students who wanted to, for instance, buy a phone, buy a laptop, go for this program or that. But this is actually the daily reality of a lot of people. And they have to go do 010, sometimes do 00 half. And that's how they live. And so as we try to get responses from the NAPCO Secretariat relative to the demands being made by the trainees, there's also a bigger picture of how different people in different areas within the country are being beaten to it by the harsh realities of the living standards that we are currently facing.
And talking about the living standards, I brought back that bit we put out on social media yesterday. How much can you do with 20 Ghana cedis? Think about it very quickly. How much can you do with 20 Ghana cedis?
Well, my Uber to work cost me 27 Ghana cedis. And so I can't get to work with 20 cedis. And so perhaps I'll just buy kinky in my house and stay at home.
Charlie, I'm thinking of it. Even now, fruits are so expensive. You won't buy fruits, Charlie. Anyway, let's check out the papers you have very quickly in maybe a minute and a half. What are the headlines?
So the Finder says, we are now born again, with a picture of the IGP, Dr. George Kufu Dampare. He says, don't judge Ghana, please, with our past. Perry Okujeto, Linda Asante, appointed Deputy NPA chief executives and work to resume on Tamale affordable housing project. Asenso Boache speaking here. Pamela Jamson Tete is now Ghana Airports Company Limited boss. And firstly donates 50,000 Ghana cedis to a Piazza support fund. The publisher, Ghanaian publisher, says IGP OK's DP plate says no law forbids usage at night. And 4 MPs want probe into Mills' death. Twin brother insists he died in his arms, with a picture of Frank Anodompre, who's leading a team of 4 MPs. So you have Habib Idris, you have OPK, and then one other one. Of course, the Daily Guide is leading this morning with John Mahama denies coup plot. Ufosu Ampovo had evil agenda on page number 3. Atuasian hot over 165 million Ghana cedi transfer, with a picture of the embattled CEO of Capital Bank, the now defunct Capital Bank. Probe Mills' death. 4 MPs filed motion to get that probed by Parliament. And of course, the 4th MP is the Tema Central MP, Ni Noi Hansen Norte. Appeals Court clears Unibank receiver. And so, by way of headlines that I have, this is, I just
Those
want
are the
to,
major ones.
exactly.
Right. I know you might want to touch on one of them, but my quick take on the headlines you put out there with Dr. Dampare bit, though. You remember that Lord Kenya song? I'm born again.
I'm born again.
So it was, I think we should play that on radio or something for, Dr. George Ekufu Dampare. And on the bit about Mills's death, some 10 years on, it's interesting because when his brother spoke, he was talking about the fact that the NPP or the current administration hadn't finished investigating the case of the former member of parliament, J.B. Dankwa Edu, and suggesting some hypocrisy there. But I also think that, in criminal cases, when it comes to whether murder or manslaughter or whatever, time is of no essence. If the proof is there, and I'm not suggesting that any such thing happened, but I'm saying that if there are any such elements, as people have been accused and counter-accused, Kwaku Anyudoho himself speaking and saying that some had accused him of being complicit, then it wouldn't matter the stretch of time. Exactly. But interestingly, it's also been tabled and made mention of that it would depend on how valid, the weight that this petition carries for it to be even accepted in Parliament. So it remains a debate. Will the Speaker let it through? Does it have enough substance to even be pushed through Parliament for a probe? That's another interesting matter. Anyway, so let's get back to that story.
Well, I was going to talk to you about the IGP, but on this, I remember that in 2019, I did a story about the unsolved murders. These are high-profile cases in terms of unsolved murder that we had, and it's for me, we need to pay attention to these ones because they keep, as it were, washing away the confidence that people have in the security agencies, so that they don't take the law into their own hands. But we are now born again. That is IGP, and he says that management will continue to chart constructive pathways towards making the service a world-class institution in policing. He said this would demand utmost change in attitude to work and servicemen becoming more professional in all outlook and spheres. He said these during a tour of the OT region to familiarize himself with officers and servicemen and other major actors in the enclave. And so Dr. George Ekufu Dampare saying that, remember that in the past week, the police service has come under intense criticism for the arrest and prosecution of people who had said A or B or C, with a renewed debate over criminal libel law, its repeal, and what seems to have replaced the criminal libel law. And it's been, according to the folks who argue, it's being used inappropriately. And so maybe that's a part that the IGP wants to look at, and assure people of what the police will be doing. So, Ben, by way of the headlines, that's what we have in a daily guide, daily.
Right.
Find that and then.
So Republic Press says Apiata modeled community to be completed within 6 to 12 months. That's according to the Lands Minister. Private commercial transportation operators to increase fares by 30% today. And I mentioned, share with the hashtag AM show. Let us know if you're boarding public transport this morning. Have the prices changed? What are the increments? We just might be in a Trusky near you, right? So do stay with us. 36 things to do if you're thinking about divorce.
Hey, 36.
Okay, so that's quite a list. Divorce, though, wreaking havoc on society. UTAC flouts court orders, fails to call off strike after meeting MPs. And there's also the custodian talking about First Lady dropping 50K in a Piate fund. We had 20K from the Lands Minister himself. I will wrap the entire segment with a quote, or should I say a tweet, that just came from Mr. President at N. Akufo-Addo. And he puts there, here are a few examples of road infrastructure around the country. Hashtag Year of Roads, hashtag Building Ghana Together, and of course, hashtag E-Levy for Development. You should go on Twitter and check the responses there. Some in agreement, but some clearly not in agreement. Someone says, Kojo Che Ampong says, so without the E-Levy, we cannot do these. And what he adds, I cannot read. But you go there for yourself and check out the details. Manuel?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. And I know today you'll be out and about, God willing.
Yes, we are out and about in somewhere near you.
Somewhere near you. All right. So it's a wrap for the news review. Up next, we bring you sports right here on the AM show. After that, the big stories. And don't you forget, we want to hear how you feel about those big stories. Which has been the biggest for you? Hashtag AM show. Stay.